Good morning. Well, the world has changed. There was an attempt on Donald Trump's life over the weekend. A shot was fired from the roof of a building just 130 yards from where he was speaking. The young man who's supposed to have fired the shot was using an AR-15. And what we know is that he was not stopped before he pulled the trigger several times, unfortunately resulting in the injuries to two other attendees. And in addition to that, the death of a hero who dove on top of his family to save them. Donald Trump was shot, and at the moment that the shot took place, Donald Trump turned his head slightly to one side, and the bullet grazed his ear. I'm not certain what the full extent of the injury to his ear is, but it was miraculous, providential. The hand of God was clearly at work. There's no ways that you can look at that slight movement in his head and not realize that had he been looking in the same direction he was probably at the moment that the thought went through the shooter's head to pull the trigger, that his head would have received the impact of this bullet, which is designed to kill. A 130-yard shot is nothing. I'm a deer hunter. My young grandsons can make that shot. It is, particularly if there's a scope on the rifle, it's a very easy shot to make. This was clearly an attempt to kill Donald Trump. This was not some random, crazy person. Interestingly enough, the young man's last name, who's been accused of firing the shot, was Crooks. I know that you have been watching the news and probably have seen a number of questions raised about this incident, questions about the Secret Service detail, how the efforts of the Secret Service agents who were acting in heroic fashion when they dove on top of Donald Trump were executing what their training had told them, that is to shield him from any other shots, to use their own bodies to take the shot instead. I don't think anybody can be critical of those who did that. But the Secret Service was also responsible for securing the perimeter. And the perimeter in this case was the entryway into the event where people were attending the speech. This means that they went through a metal detector to find out if they're carrying arms. There were probably Secret Service agents scanning the crowd to see if there was anyone making any unusual movements, anybody who appeared to be posing a threat. They installed bulletproof barriers around the stage, as they usually do, and they had positioned snipers on the roof of two buildings located behind former President Trump in the event that there was the need to fire a shot at someone or something. I've been to presidential events. I've attended 3 Republican National Conventions. I have seen what a perimeter looks like. I have ridden on a bus to a convention center where the convention was being held, and many blocks away, the roads were barricaded with concrete obstructions. Chain link fences were erected. National Guard or military vehicles were stationed. Police were at every corner with their lights on. As our bus carrying delegates entered the secured areas, there were dogs and there were mirrors shined under the buses, and we were dropped off at a distance from the convention hall and had to walk. All of that kept us under surveillance. All of that created a perimeter. All of that created a safety zone. I've been to speeches where presidents have been speaking. I've been to gatherings and fundraisers where presidential candidates have been speaking. I've seen the kind of perimeters that are established. I've seen snipers lying in the ditch along the roadway leading to someone's home who was hosting a fundraiser for a presidential candidate. To say that the perimeter was just the area into which people walked that might be carrying a gun or wishing to do some harm is preposterous. Flat-roofed buildings or buildings in the near vicinity, an elevated position from which someone could gain access and fire a shot from a distance, those are clearly within the purview of the security necessary in a case of this sort. So the question has to be asked, why were there substitute Secret Service agents on his detail? Why were there women who were too short to stand next to a man over 6 feet tall and shield him from further shots? Why was there confusion amongst Secret Service agents on the scene, at the site, at the time, who said they didn't know what to do next? Where do we go with him? Confusion? People not big enough to shield the president? Snipers on a roof? No security outside of the perimeter where the visitors and the guests were located? Nobody keeping an eye on elevated positions in the near vicinity with drones, helicopters, or anyone else? Doesn't make sense. There's also questions about the shooter. The only information that's available about him is from a high school friend who said that he was a loner, he was bullied, and he wore a mask at all times. Now, that's an important piece of information in my view. It's an important piece of information because in 2020, there was a grand experiment done in this country. That grand experiment was to find out how many people were easily manipulated. How many people could be convinced that a piece of cloth over your mouth through which you could smell the perfume of somebody in the store next to you, where you could smell cigarette smoke, where you could smell your surroundings, you could smell food cooking, is going to protect you from a virus that's many, many, many microns smaller than the tightest hole in that mask. We all now know that the mask was really of no protection. I even think that Anthony Fauci has confessed that the mask was no protection. Nevertheless, we learned that there are a certain number of people in this country who can be manipulated, who can be convinced to do something. And how are they convinced? I've said this on many other occasions, in many other shows, on my blog, and in many other articles that I've written. The data being collected on you, the data being collected by everything you say and do, where you shop, what you look at, what you read, all of that data is being fed into massive computers. And now with the benefit of AI, advertisers and others are not only capable of knowing what your preferences are. Are you interested in fly fishing? Do you like makeup? Are you interested in fashion? How about automobiles? On a macro level, putting ads in front of you that appeal to the things you're interested in makes sense. That would be a reason to collect data. But they've gotten to the point where collecting that data goes far beyond any of that. The data they're collecting now is the colors that you respond to, the sounds that you respond to, the typeface that you respond to. They've got you down to the point where they know whether you're a blonde, blue-eyed woman within a certain age group who lives in a certain geographic area, who happens to like certain things, and that you respond more favorably when the typeface is Century or Arial, or it's a script typeface. They know that you like colors. They know you like male voices or female voices. They know you better than you know yourself, and they take all of these data points, and now with the help of AI, in an instant, they can tell if they put an ad in front of you, whether you're likely to respond. And not just for advertising purposes. If they put an idea in front of you, how you're likely to respond. If they're able to predict your behavior, they're able to manipulate your behavior. They don't have to put food in front of you to make you salivate. They can just ring a bell. That's the point we're at. Now, the young man who's allegedly the shooter, his last name is Crooks. You know, the evil in the world, they like to play games. They like to show how much smarter they are than everybody else. People who commit crimes over and over leave clues. They name themselves. They create patterns. They like to taunt the people who are trying to find them. Donald Trump has called Hillary, Crooked Joe. He's talked about the crooks in government. I happen to think that there are really not very many coincidences in the world. Is it possible that a kid named Crooks was just a way for the deep state, the intelligence agencies, to let you know that it's they who were manipulating this, creating this scenario, that they're behind it? Just remember what Chuck Schumer one time said.
Let me ask you, I don't know if you have seen this. I don't want to blindside you with this. This is the latest statement, latest tweet, as you were just saying, the president-elect's latest unsolicited pronouncement on the intelligence community. This was his tweet just a little while ago tonight. You see the scare quotes there. The intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. Look. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community. We don't know what's going on. Look at the Russian hacking.
Donald Trump has been a critic of the deep state. Initially said he was going to Washington, D.C. to drain the swamp. Think of all the ways they have tried to get him. Everything that they have done, and none of it worked. And now it appears as though Joe Biden, after the debate, is unable to beat Donald Trump. His own party has been searching for someone to replace him because they cannot stand the idea that Donald Trump could win the election and become president. Just a couple weeks ago, Joe Biden said, it's time to put Donald Trump in the bullseye. How many other statements have been made about Donald Trump being Hitler or Mussolini or being an existential threat to democracy? How much longer can we go on knowing full well that that the media, complicit with this movement within the Democratic Party, has ratcheted up the rhetoric that there is a seething hatred toward Donald Trump? And how many other data points has the CIA collected that they might use to manipulate someone to do something so evil as what took place this past weekend? I can't answer those questions. I can't tell you that I know that anybody was behind this except for some deranged young man. But I don't think that we're at a point in this country's history where we can ignore patterns that we see developing, that we can ignore the fact that there are questions being asked about the Secret Service and the protection afforded to Donald Trump, particularly in light of the fact that members of Congress have even proposed removing his Secret Service protection and have denied RFK Jr. Secret Service protection, even though he is a legitimate candidate for president of the United States. Folks, MSNBC this morning canceled Morning Joe. Canceled it. Did not air it today. The Biden campaign has even said they need to dial back the rhetoric. We'll see how that goes. But there has been such hatred developed against Donald Trump. I don't think we can say there's only one person who's at fault. There seems to have been a conspiracy of people working against Donald Trump to the point where what happened this weekend is not all that surprising. Now, I'm going to play for you a video. It's available on YouTube. It's by Vlad Media. And I want you to listen to what RFK Jr. says about the CIA and the death of his father.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 1968. You're 14 years old at the time, and you're in boarding school at the Georgetown Preparatory School in Maryland. Your father, Bobby Kennedy, is running for the presidential nomination with the Democrats. And during this process, on June 5th, 1968, he was at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. As he was leaving the ballroom, he decided to go through the kitchen. And I guess his bodyguard, FBI agent Bill Barry, told him to avoid the kitchen because it was very crowded. As he was going through, shaking hands with everyone, a 24-year-old Palestinian man named Saran shot him with a .22 caliber revolver. He was hit 3 times. 5 other people were wounded as well. When you found out that your dad had gotten killed, what went through your mind?
Well, I didn't, first of all, I would dispute that description of what happened.
Okay.
I don't believe that Sirhan's bullets ever hit my father,
Okay.
and neither did the coroner, Thomas Noguchi, who's probably the most famous coroner in American history, who did an autopsy that is known as the perfect autopsy. He actually flew in the chief coroners of all the every branch of the military service to sit in the surgical theater to watch what he did because he knew what had happened in Dallas, and he didn't want to repeat. And what he found, Sirhan had 8 shots. He had a .22 revolver, or 8 shots in it. He fired 2 shots at my father. One of those shots hit Paul Schrade, who was the UAW, the United Auto Workers deputy chief. There was only 2 unions that supported my father, the United Auto Workers and Cesar Chavez Union. And Paul Schrade had recruited Cesar Chavez to the United Farm Workers, so he was very close to my dad. He got shot in the head, and he was okay. And, he actually died a year and a half ago and spent the last 20 years of his life trying to get Sirhan out of prison, the man who shot him. The other shot went past my father's head and hit a door jamb behind him, and it was later removed by the LAPD. It was dug out of the door jamb. The whole door jamb was removed. He was then pounced upon by 6 men, including Rafer Johnson, who was the 1960 decathlon champion, gold medal Olympian, one of my father's closest friends, and Rosie Greer, who was one of the, fearsome foursome, who had been a bodyguard for my dad. He was, one of the most famous football players of his time. And 4 other people, including the guy who was the director or the concierge of the Ambassador Hotel. And they pounced on him. They took his hand and pointed away from my father. So they pointed the opposite direction. Rafer Johnson later told me that he tried to get the gun out of Sirhan's hand, but Sirhan had superhuman strength. He's a little tiny man. I've met him.
5'5", I think.
Yeah, he's tiny. But he couldn't, this big, Rafer is like 6'4" and solid muscle. He could not get and you had a professional lineman from, the Oakland Raiders there that day. And they couldn't get it. So he fires 6 more shots in the opposite direction and it empties the chamber of his gun. He's always in front of my father, by the way. My father, he's sitting with his back to a steam table, and they bent him over the steam table. And he fired the bullets this way. As you pointed out, those bullets each hit people. So 5 people, one of them got hit twice. So if you just do the math, my father got shot 4 times from behind. And he only hit 8 bullets in his gun. He didn't reload. We know what happened to the first 2, and we know what happened to the second 6. We know what happened to every one of those bullets. My father was killed from behind. He was shot 4 times. One of the shots went harmlessly through the shoulder pad of his suit. The other 3 were fatal or potentially fatal. and one of them was right behind his ear. All of them were contact shots. That's what Thomas Noguchi found, meaning the barrel of the gun was either touching his skin or his clothing and was and left a carbon tattoo, or was close enough, within an inch, close enough to leave a carbon tattoo. And the gun was being held at an upward angle. So he was shot from behind by somebody who was standing behind him with the gun pressed between the two of them and firing. And that man was almost certainly Eugene Thane Cesar, who was a security guard who had been hired the day before. So they already knew when he got the job, he already knew my father was going to be at that hotel. His full-time job was at the Lockheed plant. And before that, he had worked at another defense plant, which was Howard Hughes' company. And he had top security classifications at that plant. Lisa Pease, who's a researcher, has found documents where he self-identifies as a CIA agent. He ended up leaving the country. He was very outspoken against my father. He believed that my father would start a race war, that my father would put blacks in charge of the country, and he hated blacks. And he ended up leaving the country. He died about a year and a half ago in the Philippines. Before he died, I tried to go over there and interview him. He originally said that it would cost me $10,000, but he would do it. And then when I got close to going, he said it's going to be 15. And then a day before I left, he said it's going to be 25,000. So then I thought he's playing a game.
Yeah.
And I ended up not going. But I can't prove that my father was killed by the CIA. But there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. And then, there's a lot of other circumstantial evidence, and particularly with Sirhan's background and his trial, there's a lot of, and the cover-up. There was a lot of agency involvement.
He can't say for certain, but he certainly makes a compelling case. This is a man who is a candidate for the presidency of the United States. This is a man who is, as best we can tell, not inclined to lie about what he knows about, although he has been accused of being a conspiracy theorist. All I can say, folks, is that we're at a point in our country's history where there is absolutely no reason whatsoever for us to just accept the narrative being fed to us by the news media or the government. There's too much at stake, and we must be proactive. It's okay to ask questions, and that's what I've done here. And I'm asking you to take this action. Keep an open mind. Keep yourself informed. And if you have a chance, stay tuned to the Marcus Carey Perspective.